Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little different. As some of you may know, one of my hobbies is making kombucha, that non-alcoholic hippie juice that got the world by storm. Just the other day, on my to-do list between eating disgusting amounts of food and sleeping the day away to forget my emotional problems was making a batch of kombucha. This video was pre-recorded and I am now reading a script and voice recording in order to not sound like the antisocial awkward teen that I am. Anyway, just now I'm filling the sink with hydration extract, foamy clean, and the only way a white person could say the N-word without getting into any trouble, aka water, soap, and of course, vinegar. This is to ensure that when the bottles are placed into the sink, any contaminants such as old kombucha, any possible growth on the glass, or any evil spirits of Satan will be cleansed and the bottles will be ready for kombucha. Now after the sink is filled with the foamy concoction, it is time to get the bottles cleansed. Now the first step in performing a counterfeit exorcism on your bottle is to fill it about halfway with normal water, no holy water required, although better results occur if used. Then thoroughly and ruthlessly drown your bottle in the sink, making sure that there is plenty of foamy clean both on the outside and the inside of the glass. Now take a moment to gather some of the other bottles, making sure not to drop any. Now it is important to remember, these aren't children, these are bottles. Be careful not to drop them, and repeat the step from before of getting the sink liquid thoroughly into and on the outside of the bottle. Many air bubbles will come out of the bottles as you do this. The air bubbles are the physical embodiment of the evil contaminants in your bottle, so it wouldn't hurt to have a priest, rabbi, minister, or simply a Glock for protection. Spiritual safety is key when making a fresh batch of kombucha. Anyway, now after the bottles have been cleansed, it is important to dry the outside of the glass off. There is no need to dry off the inside, as in a sense, it'll keep out unwanted evil, but in a much more real sense, it's a pain to dry, and it's just going to be filled with kombucha anyway, so no need to bother. To dry the bottles correctly, it is of the utmost importance to have at least a PhD in the art of seductive massaging, as you will end up using much of those same techniques and principles. But instead of turning someone on through enticing muscle manipulations and then batter dipping sausage, you are drying a glass bottle. Now I have 12 bottles total. You do not need nearly as many, but regardless, it is very important to have plenty of room to work with, as all of the necessary tools and equipment do take up a lot of space. The next step in advancing forth in this truly emotional and physically taxing adventure that is kombucha brewing is to evacuate the scobies faster than fathers evacuate their children to get some milk and a pack of cigarettes. This process was so stressful that I had to turn off my Christian music to focus better. It is essential that you teabag the glass gallon with each SCOBY, as all good kombucha craftsmen and women have a strict zero waste policy on kombucha, and a few drops may be wasted as you quick draw the SCOBY from the liquid nectar of God that is kombucha. Now after the SCOBYs have been safely removed from the glass gallon, douse the SCOBYs in roughly 1.5 cups of the kombucha to keep them sufficiently hydrated until the next batch can be started. Once you have accomplished this invigorating mission, tuck the SCOBY soup in by covering it with the same cloth that you used to cover up the glass gallon, which did a remarkably better job of covering up something than the Kardashians' clothes or politicians with their scandals. Next, throw a large rubber band around this container to secure the cloth to the glass. The cloth is used to cover the SCOBY soup for the same reason I still use a blanket in the summer. It doesn't really accomplish anything, but I feel better and more secure with having it on. After all of the SCOBYs have been removed from the glass gallons, I quantify the acidic caliber of this drink, aka I quickly teabag it with a pH strip to look at its colors. For optimal kombucha, it is of dominant importance to make sure that the kombucha has a pH of 4.5 or below. In this case, if it is green, there's a problem. If it's any other color, you're fine. Except maybe magenta or neon, which would be very pretty to the eyes, but not very pretty when you're coming down with the kombucha equivalent to STDs. As you can see, both of my gallons showed orange on the pH slips, which is just about perfect. It is now the time we've all been waiting for. It's time to bottle the kombucha. For this part, y'all are most likely tired of hearing my immature attempts at humor, so for these time lapses, I'll just throw in some music. You're welcome. Hey, welcome back to the show, where we make non-alcoholic fermented hippie juice while a teen makes slightly edgy and questionable narration. Hey, I never said I run a podcast. Anyway, the first step in making a new batch of kombucha is making 2 pots of decaf tea, or as I like to call it, the indica of tea. For my teas, I chose the brand Stash and had ginger peach and mint as my flavors. Pour 4 cups of hydration extract into 2 fairly large pots and set on a high level until they're boiling or pretty close to it. Next, scoop a half cup of granulated white sugar into the boiling concoction. Speaking of white sugar and never mind, I'm trying to keep the content family friendly here. When you pour the sugar into the water, turn the burners down a bit and stir to mix in and disintegrate the sugar. Once the sugar is dissolved, turn down the heat and much like I do with my problems, move the pots to the back burner. After this, quite literally teabag the water with the 2 tea bags of your choosing, then leave them in the water and let them steep for 7 minutes. Once the tea is done, be sure to give the big boy glass gallons a good scrub. Try saying that 5 times fast. It is necessary to cleanse even these large glass gallons, as obviously there's evil spirits and such. And yes, I just plagiarized the same joke I made not even 5 minutes ago, but also, you don't want any weird growth or anything dirtying up God's nectar. It's only sanitary. Once the glass gallons have been washed, dry them off and then pour the tea from earlier into the respective containers. Once that exhausting task has been accomplished, pour 8 cups of filtered room temperature water into each container. By the end, both should be a little more than 3/4 of the way filled. I unfortunately had to refill my own filter, but at least it made for a dope transition. Now the next step within this liquid cultivation saga is to check on the temperature. The scobies can't go into the tea if the temperature is higher than 86 degrees or lower than 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Now those with a good memory will remember that not 30 seconds ago this was on a boiling stove. However, the thermometer is a bit difficult to read, so I used my precise eagle vision tactics that I learned back in ninja school to notice the thermometer doesn't say anything. That's how toasty it was. Given enough time, however, it becomes cool enough to throw the scobies into the tea along with the kombucha that had been taken out of it in the very beginning, as even scobies realize the importance of staying sufficiently hydrated. Once the scobies along with the original kombucha are in your glass gallons, you need to take the pH of the new batch. It should be between 2.5 and 3.5 for optimal brewing. It shows this by the color coordination with a little paper pH strip. As you can see, both of mine stayed orangish yellow, which is perfect. With either one of the pH tests, if it isn't in a range where it should be, and just like when people run into relationship problems, there is plenty of information on the web for how to make it right this time, and in the future. And lastly, to end this truly emotional, spiritual, and heartwarming experience, it's always a good idea to log what teas you used and the overall recipe for each batch, so that just in case you make a batch you didn't like all that much, you'll know how to not do it again that way. Then be sure to tuck the kombucha away in a towel or blanket to keep its heat in, as the warmer it is, the faster it ferments within reason. And depending on your personal taste, leave it from anywhere between 10 days to a month. The longer it sits, the more vinegary it gets. And there you have it. That is how you make kombucha with the kit that I have. This is one I just bottled today. It's Brew 21. Here's little babies. They've gotten very big. They like roosting. This first one here is Wicket. And there's 3 Orpingtons lined up on the bar. Anyway, there you have it. That's how you do it. That whole process takes about 4 to 5 hours. On any given day. I do it between every 2 weeks and every month. I like it sitting there for a little while. It's very vinegary. The mint is very strong. I did one thing. It's called a second fermentation, which is where you put berries in it. That's when you saw I had a skewer and I was shoving grapes down into the kombucha. It'll sit there for 2 or so days and it'll get sweeter, it'll get more bubbly, more fermented. Not alcohol fermentation, but more vinegar fermentation. But that's how you do it. If you want to see more like this, let me know. Leave down in the comments what you want to see. More videos coming out really soon. And yeah, I'll see you next time.